Well, it seems as though Amazon are looking to get their disastrous series, The Rings of Power, back into the conversation by using the only tactic that they can, because that is the only thing that they have at their disposal for this series, and that is the old race card. They're still droning on about it, banging that same old drum, and it is something that just really they have no case for. But we just keep hearing about, and this time it's Rings of Power star Ismael Cruz Cordova. For those that don't know, that is Black Elf #1. There's a reason I say that. That's because this is a character that, well, has no character. He might as well have been an extra in this series. So that's why I say that. And he says Amazon hired an on-set therapist to deal with racist backlash. And I mean, see if they're still under this belief. If anyone's under this belief that there was racist backlash, you are literally in a fantasy. That's really all I can say to that. You know, we know how this entire thing went. People seen the certain choices that were made and they said, well, that doesn't fit the lore of Tolkien. That's what many people had an issue with. Then when it came to the series, when the series came out, people realized, oh, this is utter dog shit. And nobody even brought up any of these facts at all. People moved on to, that's absolutely terrible. That makes no sense. That character is a complete dumbass. All these different things were coming up, and all we heard from Amazon was load of racists. That's why people don't like our show. That's why, you know, we look at the Rotten Tomatoes score. That's just a bunch of racists. That is. Even though they don't account for the fact that House of the Dragon came out at the same time that had race-swapped a character, Corlys Velaryon. It had black people in a fantasy. And Amazon's whole thing was, oh, they just don't like black people in fantasy, even though House of the Dragon literally contradicts that. So that's why this entire argument doesn't work. Because really all it came down to, people don't like your show. You can't just accept some criticism. You got to just go, nah, it's because they're racist, you see. It's not us. The responsibility isn't ours to make a good show. We can just go, oh, well, they're just racist, you see. It's not that we have no talent. So, again, House of the Dragon came out at the same time. They can't keep using this argument. But, again, it's the only way they can gain some sort of relevance. Just so you remember, oh, that's right, you're doing a season 2. So that is why we're still getting stuff like this. But apparently, an on-set therapist, which I believe they had a therapist for Morphy Clark, because in the fight scenes, like, she didn't realise that the fight scenes were fake. So she needed a therapist for it. So it's really not surprising that a lot of these actors would need therapists, because they are pussies, aren't they? They can't take any criticism, so that's why they just go to this tired old trick. You know, again, we're dealing with, there's no evidence provided, it's just said. It's like, Ismael Cruz Cordova, if you show the receipts of this, I'll go, yeah, that's, you know, that's pretty shitty. But at the same time, yeah, there's people that do that on the internet. They look for a rise out of people. But the idea that there was so many, when really it's just going, oh, well, he criticised my character, or said that doesn't fit the law. Well, that, you know, saying those arguments aren't a racist thing. You know, it's a racist thing if you were to shout a slur at him, which I haven't really seen anywhere. Maybe on the deep, dark depths of the internet, you know, I'm pretty sure there's some there. But you need to provide the receipts for this. You can't keep being the boy who cried racism. Because that's really all this is at this point, if there's no evidence for it. But the Rings of Power star Ismael Cruz Cordova is opening up about the cast and crew's mental health while shooting the Amazon Prime Video series. Well, you know, I mean, that must be true, because Morphy Clark thought it was real. During an appearance on this week's Just for Variety podcast, the actor tells me that an on-set therapist was on hand to offer help after the show received racist backlash. Again, I didn't see any of this racist backlash. Did not see any of it at all. I just seen people saying, that doesn't fit the law. There is actually a way to do it that would make sense and would actually be a lot more interesting. Those were the arguments that I seen. I never seen anyone saying, oh, no, you know, we don't like black people. I never seen that argument getting thrown out there. It was just fans that, you know, Tolkien fans that are very invested in the world and want to see that world transported on screen. But at the end of the day, when it came to Rings of Power, it didn't really matter because it was just a terrible show. Racist backlash against its inclusive and diverse casting. You didn't really do anything with that inclusive and diverse casting, did you? You just said, here's Black Elf #1. Here's Black Numenorian #1. That's all you done. You didn't actually give them a character. You didn't make them interesting. So having something inclusive and diverse, that doesn't really mean shit, does it? That would mean a lot more if you actually put the effort in, but the writers didn't because they didn't know what they were doing. You need support when this happens because the voices are so loud, but what people say in your show shit. Again, I'll keep going back to this throughout the video. House of the Dragon had black people in it. Did anyone complain? No, because it was a good show. And that's that. At the end of the day, that's mainly what people care about. If the Rings of Power was good, there wouldn't be any of this. The reason why HBO aren't calling out racists is because their show was good. You know, for a second, they thought people were going to respond to it poorly, and they were about to go that route, but as soon as they seen, oh, no, people like it, they didn't attempt to do that. You even had the Corlys Velaryon actor talking about that as well. He almost went that route, and then he started going the route of, the fans are great, and all that sort of stuff. So, again, if everybody really was racist against black people being in fantasies, then where were they when it comes to House of the Dragon? They didn't exist because it doesn't exist. So yeah, they need support about this made-up fantasy they made up in their heads. The voice again. I imagine a lot of this stuff he's just told to say. That's sometimes how it comes across. It's just, here, Cordova, could you go out and talk about racism again? So by the time season 2 comes around, we can still continue that same thing. Because the voices are so loud and they're coming at you from so many places. Cordova, who was shooting season 2 in the UK, when we spoke, says the therapist's presence alone was beneficial. I loved seeing her there, even if we didn't speak. Yeah, but I thought there was all this racist backlash. Why weren't you speaking to the therapist? That already doesn't make sense. That makes about as much sense as the Rings of Power. I knew there was someone there seeing me completely. It wasn't just as an actor. The therapist was brought on board when production resumed shooting after passing during the pandemic. That's apparently why the script is bad, because of the pandemic. That's an excuse that gets flung out there now and again. Cordova's character, Arondir, is the first person of colour to play an elf on screen. Again, might as well have been an extra in the Lord of the Rings universe. The amount of these different qualifiers they have to have. Because he's not the first person of colour to play an elf. Not true. He's not the first black elf in fantasy. That's not true. He just doesn't know shit about shit. But he says it hurt, Cordova says of the backlash. It had a psychological and mental health impact. That's something that I'm very, very open about so that people understand that what they do and say online really hurts people. Really has an impact on us. Well, I mean, if you were an adult, it wouldn't, though, because it's just written words. That's all it really is. And if it's people just saying, I didn't like the show, it was fucking shit. You can't really go, they're attacking me online when they're not. And again, you can't just say this. You have to show the receipts for this for people to take it seriously whatsoever, because it's hard to take it seriously when we've seen companies do these things all the time. When people react to their product not in a good way. So that's why it's hard to believe anything that comes out of their mouths. It's not hard to believe that, yeah, maybe you got a couple. But the idea that there's so many just online trolls attacking me in my DMs. First of all, you can turn your DMs off. That's not hard. But yeah, the idea that, they said hurtful things about our show online. It's such soft behavior. It wasn't just attacks on social media. My phone got hacked, so now his phone got hacked. He's not going to provide receipts on that. So, I don't know if his phone was hacked by, more likely to be hacked by journalists. But I guess it's racists or something like that. I had bank account attempts of being hacked, showers. My PayPal got hacked. Again, show us. My friends got messages. Who the fuck knows who your friends are? How would any of us know who this actor's friends are? Again, none of this makes any sense. I got death threats. You know, plenty of people get death threats all the time for very little things. It's the internet. Yes, it's not a good thing, but at the end of the day, it's not really much you can do about it. You know, it's just some asshole on the internet going, you know, I hope you die or something like that. It's like, don't really mean anything. Doesn't mean anything at all. So I don't really see it as something to get your panties in a bunch over. You know, again, I have to say, it's still not a good thing to do. I still, you know, agree with that. But it's just a thing that happens. It's just something that is out of your control. And really, it comes down to dealing with it like an adult. Just going, look at this asshole. Moving on with your day. That's really all you need to do. You don't need to see a therapist over it. I got things mailed to me. How did we find... People found out my address. It was a lot. So you've literally got letters that have come in the post. Why can't we get a picture of these? No, we can't do that, can we? Because it's not real. But then he says with a big smile, "We're still here." Cordova also, you know, unfortunately, the Rings of Power is still going. Cordova has also been open about how badly he wanted to be on the show. You know, we've heard a lot of this before. So much so that when he wasn't originally cast, he convinced producers to reconsider. I grew up with that rejection all around me. That's pretty normal for an actor to get rejection, be used to rejection, because they go and audition for a lot of shows, a lot of movies, so I would expect you to be able to deal with rejection. You know, it's funny how you can't deal with it when it comes to the actual show. And that's something that's driven me. I was not going to take a no for an answer because I knew what this role would entail. Again, they didn't do anything with you. Didn't do anything with you at all. So, you know, I don't really know what you're talking about. I knew what it would do in the scope of fantasy. No, Black Elves already existed in fantasy. Long time ago. Been around a very long time. And I'm not even into that much fantasy stuff. And even I know they exist because I've seen it. I've seen it, so stop making up lies. But, you know, again, it's all this self-important, self-aggrandizing bollocks, just to pat themselves on the back and thinking they're, you know, doing something. When it's like, no, you're not. You're just casting a shit show. That's really all it comes down to. I knew that I wanted to be part of something historic. I mean, a historic failure, maybe. Especially with the elves. The elves have been historically portrayed as white and Aryan. Were, you know, portrayed as white in Tolkien, yes. But there's loads of different fantasy realms. There is not just one fantasy land. There is many. I wanted to be an elf. I was a mountain boy who grew up in Puerto Rico. I was in love with nature. And I knew it would change things. What's it changed? Again, I just read that and I'm like, well, what has been changed? Doesn't seem like anything. Like anything at all. But, you know, he goes into that he might be working for Marvel Studios. You know, was he even a good actor, really? It's hard to tell because they didn't give him nothing to work with. But yeah, they're still beating this drum that, it's all this racism. You know, it seems to be every few months you have one of these actors, you know, because it used to be, you know, the big woman, the woman that played a dwarf. It used to be her that banged on about it. Now it seems to be this guy that just doesn't shut the fuck up about it. And, you know, it seems to me like he's just being told to say this from Amazon. That's all it really seems like to me. That's all it seems like. So it's not surprising that they're still banging on the same drum. And it's just going to continue every couple of weeks, every few months maybe. We'll get another one of these saying, all this racist backlash and everything. You know, they're just gearing up for season 2 so they could all call us patently evil again. I'm pretty sure the writers called us.